We know that students may be working on this independently, and we also know that the SAM performance system will let us know about students who are hitting a wall, students who are showing they're having trouble progressing. Well, one of the things, the role of the teacher here is threefold: to monitor the student use of the program, to intervene, and then to help teach or reteach. And the resources that we provide for that are to allow a teacher to go into the student client, have a conference with one student or a small group of students, or in a classroom use an interactive whiteboard. And these are going to be very friendly, you can imagine. To have students come up here on an interactive whiteboard and be able to discuss their answer, talk it out, do it as a pair and share activity. But it's usable independently, and then it's also going to be very friendly for playing the animations, the instructional animations on demand. A teacher will be able to go in and say, I'd like to do lesson 27 with this group of students. So it'll have that sort of access to all these materials to use in those environments. There's a feature called the survey feature. I'm glad you reminded me to share that. The survey feature is going to be something in a networked environment of this program where at the beginning of each lesson, students will be asked a question such as, for one day, what would you like to be? Professional athlete, a video game designer, a movie director. I forget what our fourth choice is. All the students who are taking that lesson will make an answer on that. At the end of the lesson, the results of that survey will be displayed to students in 3 fraction representations, in a bar model, as a percent, and as a number. 27 of the 52 students said they wanted to be a movie director. About half of your class said that. And it's just part of a motivating feature, and actually the data is sort of accruing all the time. I'm sure you've seen plenty of websites where there's a poll question of the day, and the data is alive. So there's going to be a feature like that in this program. And it's a real-world application of fractions, because that's certainly one of the best that we see in our own adult lives, the applications of fractions in surveys and statistical data. We get into some pretty difficult material in equivalence, and this is in fact what students have a very hard time with. They have a very hard time they don't have a hard time understanding perhaps that 1/2 equals 3/6 and 1/2 equals 5/10, but to ask them to say that 3/6 equals 5/10 is sort of a real key missing piece for them, and that's where it really links in with algebra. So we do a lot of work. In fact, we do, I think, 25 lessons in the area of equivalence, and that includes equivalence of improper fractions and mixed numbers, because that, of course, is a stepping stone into the final parts of the program involve computation of addition and subtraction with different denominators and mixed numbers. And when you think about it, adding and subtracting fractions with different denominators is in fact a much harder task than multiplying two fractions because of the number of transformations you may have to do to a particular number. If a teacher is in fact walking around and looking at how different students are using the software, there is this indicator in the upper left, thank you Christine, to sort of say, you'll say like, oh, Harris is already on lesson 29, that's great, I see he's really moving fast. There is a placement assessment. It's a 20-item assessment. It will determine a few things. One, we'll get a read on how that student performs on fractions and decimals. And we've done some piloting of an assessment, and it's both gratifying and a little scary to see that the problems with fractions are very real for students. So that will give us a starting point, a benchmark. It's a pretest measure that we compare against at the end with a post-test measure. And the other function of it is a placement. And the placement is a pretty broad placement. They either will start at the beginning of the equivalence lessons at lesson 1, or they may need to start at the beginning, I mix that up. quantity lessons, lesson 1, or equivalence lessons, lesson 28. So it's 2 starting points.